Hey, yay, it's finally time for another Retroversy video. Geez, doing 3 long-ass JRPGs wasn't the best idea, especially when you couple it with exams and stuff, but hey, you guys have been very patient, so here we go. So, a few episodes back, we looked at the first Pokémon Mystery Dungeon game, Blue Rescue Team. If you don't remember, or you're new to the channel, then here's a quick rundown. There are a lot of Mystery Dungeon games, but all the Mystery Dungeon games are their own self-contained stories, so if you want an entry point to the series, you can choose either. This is the second generation of games and are comprised of Explorers of Time, Explorers of Darkness, and a later revamped version called Explorers of Sky. Just like how the main series of games had Diamond and Pearl and then later released the Platinum version. All the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games follow the same kind of overall structure between each game, but they do vary it when it comes to the details to keep things fresh. You're a human who has turned into a Pokémon. You quickly bond to a partner, and this bond will only strengthen throughout the game. The bulk of the gameplay happens in Mystery Dungeons, which are procedurally generated dungeons which will always change whenever you walk into one. No 2 visits to the same dungeon will ever be the same. While gameplay is lighthearted and fun, the real star of the show is mostly the story it tries to tell, and especially the character development. So, we've tackled the first game in the series. But how does the next one hold up? A lot of franchises show signs of never reaching up to the greatness that was in the first game, and often new iterations keep disappointing gamers these days. This game starts with another one of these quizzes like the previous game started with. You answer questions and the game tells you which Pokémon you are. And after answering completely honestly and not resetting 4 times to become the Pokémon you wanted, the game opens up with your partner Pokémon, in my case a Vulpix, trying to muster up the courage to enter a strange tent shaped like a Wigglytuff. This doesn't go too well, and she mentions how she thought her personal treasure would help her. It clearly didn't, so she sadly hops on down to the beach to try to collect her thoughts. A coughing and a Zubat overhear her, and they decide that they want the treasure for themselves. Cut back to Vulpix admiring the bubbles the Krabby are spewing into the air. Suddenly, she finds a Riolu passed out in the sand. Turns out, this Riolu is you. You can't remember anything except your name, and the fact that you used to be human before you turned into a Pokémon. Alright, already treading on familiar ground here, but don't fix what isn't broken, right? Anyway, the coughing and Zubat from before swipe the treasure and escape into one of these titular mystery dungeons. You and Vulpix track him down, and with your help, she is able to stand up for herself and you retrieve her treasure, or relic fragment as she refers to it herself. With this newfound experience under her belt... do foxes even have belts? Oh damn, this is reminding me of the dog with the pants thing that was going around forever. Anyway, with this newfound experience, she asks you if you want to help form an exploration team with her, just like how you form a rescue team in the first game. Don't fix what isn't broken? Whatever. You get introduced to the Explorers Guild, and you meet all your new guild members. Notable members are Sunflora, Bidoof, Guildmaster Wigglytuff, and his second-in-command, Chatot. The latter, between you and me, is kind of a douchebag. He loses his cool, is generally snooty, and believes he's entirely correct, even though he's glaringly wrong. But oh well, I suppose we'll just deal with it. You choose your team name, and we gotta continue the legacy from the first game, don't we? And then you scoot off to bed. Tomorrow will be the start of your adventure. As the game progresses, you learn that you possess an ability that might help you see things in the future, or the past, depending on what the plot needs at the moment to move forward. How convenient. You use this ability to narrowly save an Azurill from a Drowsy, and you're officially some kind of hero to the citizens of Treasure Town. That night, you learn of the time gears that are hidden in different regions of the world. These are going to be the main focus of the entire game, as there's a thief going around stealing these time gears, freezing time in the associated regions. Meanwhile, your guild life continues as normal. And that's mostly it for the main story elements, but we're going to revisit it later as we discuss the ending of the game. In the meantime, this is a good point to start talking about the gameplay. It functions almost identically as the first game. The same procedurally generated dungeons, the same style of attacks, the same hunger system, the same gummy system, and the same story structure. This isn't a bad thing since I enjoyed the first game tremendously, and there are some tweaks here and there to make exploring more streamlined. For instance, you no longer need to chuck items at your partner in order for them to eat it. The AI has received a bit of an update and are less likely to get lost in the dungeons, and so on. These are tiny quality of life things that help the overall flow of the game, and that's good in my book. Although I do admit, I would have liked to see more tweaks added to the table. The hunger system still feels kind of throwaway, as all you need to do is bring an apple or two and you will never have a problem with it at all. Graphically, the game looks beautiful, and I wish we got to see more sprites in games these days. The overall push to 3D in the newer games feel like they lost a little bit of the charm they once had, but I think I'll save that criticism for the inevitable video on the next game in the series, Gates to Infinity. Now, because this game is so similar mechanics-wise to the previous game, I feel the only thing to really talk about is the story, the characters, and the script, because 2 of those 3 are top-notch. First, let's talk about the characters. Now, in the first game, I mentioned how you almost immediately started to feel like part of a community, unlike anything I've experienced before. You get acquainted to bigger and better rescue teams, and before you know it, you can get a real sense of being in an actual community of Pokémon, doing your thing, helping out as you can. I felt needed, I felt looked up to, while also looking up to other Pokémon teams as well. In this game, I felt some hostility almost immediately, and I felt like it was really difficult to bond to any of these guild characters. Well, except Sunflora and Bidoof, that lovable oaf. You're always disrespected, and soon they start getting enamored with Team Skull, the winners of the most obvious bad guy awards, even comprising of the Coughing and Zubat who jumped you in the beginning of the game. And nobody will even listen to you, so you're just left to clean up their mess after them while saying nothing. Even when deliberately sabotaging you, you're not allowed to stand up for yourself in a pretty infuriating scene where Chatot scolds you. A friend of mine, Seafoam Gaming, picks this point apart in one of his videos, so I won't linger on it. The point is that up until now, the characters have been slightly annoying and unwelcoming, except for your partner. Oh, your timid little partner Pokemon. Vulpix finds strength in you, and I find that really comforting. It goes back to the feeling of being needed, feeling like you belong, and while everyone else seems against you, your partner believes in you. Thank you, Visa the Vulpix. Eventually, your other guild members start warming up to you, and guess what? It's actually incredibly nice. It took a bit of time, but the game is starting to get really incredibly charming. You're even going on a guild-wide expedition together, and it's just a great feeling being included. Now, this is where my real complaint about this game comes into play, and this is your official spoiler warning, so skip this if you don't want to be spoiled on the entire ending. Alright, I feel the game has way too many story arcs. You got the arc with the lakes, you got the arc with the lake trio, you got the Dusknoir arc, you got the Apprehension arc, you got the Waterfloat arc, you got the Future arc, you got the Thief arc, and you got the Ocean or Temporal Tower arc, the ending. These aren't too long, but they're too many. I feel the game doesn't really have the focus it could have needed to make it great. Even worse, because so much stuff is happening, a lot of the game has to be summarized every now and then because the writers don't want you to forget what happened. Large parts of the game show flashbacks to moments that happened 5 minutes ago, and this becomes very annoying as it ruins the flow. The game also does this weird thing where they make you mute when explaining stuff, but your partner repeats everything you supposedly said in question form, so you get to read what you said after all. But the problem is that this makes the dialogue incredibly stilted and unnatural. Nobody speaks like this. Nobody repeats everything the other part in a conversation said. The worst part is that you do have dialogue in the game. Well, it's more like internalized monologues, but why? Why not just have you do the speaking? I mean, you do the thinking of everything you're going to say, and then they still repeat everything you would have said, effectively making it so that you have to read it twice. This, as mentioned, feels incredibly unnatural, and I feel it ultimately hurts the script in a rather major way. Who the hell wrote this script? Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove?
Oh, right, the poison for Cusco, the poison chosen specially to kill Cusco, Cusco's poison. That poison?
Yes, that poison.
Got you covered.
Now back to the point about the story arcs not having the focus it needs. In the first game, you and your partner become fugitives from the ones you look up to the most, and the exact same thing happens in this game as well. It's almost not different at all, and I feel that's a bit of a missed opportunity. But this was the one focused arc where your partner really started to bond with you in the first game. The music was touching and your partner was fleshed out in a way that makes for a very realistic relationship between the characters. No, not like a romantic relationship, but I really believed that you're friends in that game. You're partners. I was hoping for the same kind of development in the Fugitive arc in this game, and to its credit, it tries, but it just doesn't hit the same mark for me. For instance, there is no music until almost the end of the scene. But that being said, it's not all bad though, because when you finally get back and you finally get to see your guild again, it's a legitimately touching moment. Everybody is so happy to see you, and this is where the sense of being home finally hits me. It's a beautiful thing. I feel like I belong here. Except fucking Chadot doesn't fucking believe us and starts scolding us for telling lies. Fuck that guy. Sorry. I'm chill. Anyway, everyone stands up for you and gangs up on him, and he plays it off as if he believed us all the time and was only pretending. Chadot, you bitch! I hate you, you lying fuckface who can't admit a mistake! Sorry. Sorry. Lots of cursing in this episode. Whew. But let's skip ahead to the ending, shall we? Because the first game had a lot of weight put onto you knowing beforehand that you'd go back to the real world when you were done. This game mixes that up just a little bit, and I really like the way they handled this. They only let you know moments before you actually have to leave. See, it turns out that you were a human from the future, and you were Grovile's partner. I won't even start talking about the idea that the future apparently has humans for some reason, and you're also the only one for some reason, but now you're a Pokemon. But I will talk about how the basic idea is that if you save the world in the past, you will die, since the future would never have happened. This is actually pretty interesting, as it's an oh crap moment as it springs out of you from nowhere. I mean, it still makes sense, and also if you've played any Mystery Dungeon game, you know this is par for the course, but this spin is fresh and I like it. At least if you never watched Back to the Future. So, you go through the final Mystery Dungeon, you fight Primal Dialga and save the world from the brink of ruin. As you start disappearing, you finally spring the news on your partner. And you know what? I've been complaining about the arcs and the scripts and everything throughout this whole video, but really? This ending is amazingly done. At first, your partner starts despairing as you disappear. It's heartbreaking, but she tells your story everywhere she can. Things seem like they're looking up, like she's not completely over it, but she's trying to be independent of you. Then 6 months pass and she seems happy as she goes down to the beach for a walk. There, she sees the crabby blow bubbles again, just like the day she found you, and she starts reminiscing about this happening. Obviously, she's a little sad about this, but then the memories come rushing back, one after the other, and the game does a flashback to all the good times you had together. Oh, that music is godly. It's the main theme, but it's so goddamn sad. It really broke my heart, and it just keeps going too. So many scenes, all with that music. It's put together excellently, and it just rips right through me. Even with all the cheesy writing, the memories that used to be happy just now seem so incredibly sad. But the part that really kills me is when your partner breaks down after all these memories. This is the first time the game has made me really relate to the partner. But when it finally happened, it happened in such a huge way that it almost makes up for every bad bit of dialogue up to this point. After the credits roll and your tears have hopefully been wiped, the Dialga returns you to your partner after all. The partner looks at you for a moment, and then runs at you and just collapses in your arms out of both sadness and joy. This is done with no words, only emotion, only music, and it really shows how much charm are in these sprites. I'm not gonna lie, this game was annoying at times. Gameplay-wise, it's great, an overall improvement from the first game in all ways, no matter how small those changes are. The graphics are phenomenal, the sprites are clean, the music is godly throughout all, the Treasure Town theme sounds particularly amazing. But the dialogue and the overall story is all over the place in terms of quality. I feel it lacks a certain focus, meaning the pacing feels a bit odd. The story is still as cheesy as before, and I love that, but it repeats itself so many times, likely due to this lack of focus. The feeling of belonging from the first game kicks in pretty late, but in the end, I feel the payoff is worth it. The ending is one of the most heartrending things I've ever experienced, and I'd say the whole game is worth playing just to experience the ending. Even when you know it's coming, it still gets me every time. So which one do I prefer? The first game or the second game? It's a tough choice actually, but after a lot of debate, I think I prefer the first game due to the overall quality of the story and characters, but I'm not even sure I can make an actual decision on which is best. As for this game though, play it. Absolutely play it. It's rough, it's bumpy, but sometimes you gotta experience those lows in order for the highs to feel even higher. Also worth mentioning is that it has a really robust post-game. And if you play the Sky version of the game like I did, you even get special episodes that flesh out the side characters even more. Pretty great. But that was all the time we had for the day. This is easily the hardest script I've ever written, and I feel like I might have struggled with focus almost as much as the game did. But enough about that. Thank you very, very much for watching. I may not upload as often as other YouTubers do, but I try to make sure that what I do upload holds as high quality as I can make it. Because go big or go home, right? I hope I'll see you around in the next episode, whenever that comes out, am I right? Holla bra! Opinions ranged from being a necessary evil for making a player learn the mechanics of the game, to feeling like they're just a relic from the arcade days that needed to die because we weren't paying. I'm noticing that the weird duck-like mascot is gone this time around, but hey, I can live with that. We also have even more numbers this time around, orange and blue numbers.